Okay, so we're going to start meta-ethics today, which is an odd-looking word, but don't be frightened. It's perfectly understandable. Let's say this. Murder is wrong. What do we mean by that? Well, we know what we mean by murder. That's pretty obvious. That's the killing of another human being, right? Easy. Done. But what do we mean by wrong? Well, there are kind of two things we can ask about that, and these are both meta-ethical questions. The first thing we can ask is it a fact? Is wrongness a fact in the world? Like murder is a fact in the world, it's an occurrence. Is wrongness an occurrence? Is it something that exists? These views are called realism and anti-realism. If we say it is a fact, yes, then we are what's called a realist. A realist or an objectivist is someone who believes that morality is a set of facts. So, in some way, goodness and badness genuinely exist in the world in some way. If you think no, the wrongness here isn't a fact, it's something else entirely, it's something maybe in our heads, then you'd be called an anti-realist. An anti-realist thinks that morality isn't a set of facts. Okay. So that's, you would think, the only question we can ask, but we can ask another one. Is it capable of being true or false? Well, what do we mean by that? Well, is this whole sentence here capable of being true or false? It's an interesting question. There are two answers again. Basically, yes and no. If you think that the sentence itself is capable of being true, then you are a cognitivist, or false, then you are a cognitivist. You might think the murder is not wrong, for instance. If you think that the sentence isn't capable of being true or false, you are a non-cognitivist. Now, there are loads of sentences in our normal life that we think of as non-cognitivist, as not true or false. Like something like, that's tasty, is not true or false. You're just expressing your kind of feelings about some food, right? There are other sentences that we think definitely are cognitivist, like the Earth orbits the sun or something. So does murder is wrong fit into the cognitivist camp? Is it capable of being true or false? Or is it non-cognitivist? Is it not capable of being true or false? These are questions about the nature of language when applied to in ethics. So a non-cognitivist, sorry, let's start again. A cognitivist, start on the left. A cognitivist thinks that moral statements are what we call truth apt. Truth apt simply means capable of being true, right? So if you're a cognitivist, you would think this is capable of being true, but it's also capable of being false. That's also what truth apt means. So I could say murder is right, and that would also be truth apt if you're a cognitivist. Whereas a non-cognitivist, they think that moral statements aren't truth apt. So they think that just like, that tastes nice, is not truth apt. Well, moral statements are also non-truth apt. Let's make all of this disappear. and just talk about the distinction between these two things. And we'll bring up our key idea now of metaethics itself. The key idea is really to talk about what people are doing when they are talking about ethics. So when studying ethics or talking about ethics. So they think ultimately there are two questions in metaethics. One has the answer of realism and anti-realism, the other one has the answer of cognitivism and non-cognitivism. One of the questions is kind of what is in the world, okay? So are there moral things in the world? Are there moral facts in the world? Or aren't there? What is in the world? The other thing is not about what's in the world, but instead the cognitivism, non-cognitivism debate is about what our statements are about. What are our moral statements? Are they statements that are truth-act or not truth-act? So there are loads of answers to these questions, and we're going to look at a few of them now. I'm going to put a big table up on the screen on this bottom half now, and I think in terms of like a map to help you with metaethics, I think, though I say it myself, that this will be particularly useful because there are a whole load of different theories, and it's useful to understand it in a kind of overall sense. So what I've done here is I've put cognitivism and non-cognitivism down here. That's, remember, questions about our language in ethics, and then realism and anti-realism here. That's questions about whether there are facts in the world in ethical terms. So let's just look at a few theories now. One is what we would call naturalism. Now, naturalism is a cognitivist and realist theory. It thinks, essentially, that moral facts exist, morality, and exist as a natural substance. So an example of that is John Stuart Mill, who is here. He was a utilitarian, and Mill thought that that goodness, the term good, the good thing, is literally pleasure. They are the same thing, and pleasure, remember, is a thing that exists in the world. It's ultimately a chemical in your brain. So it is a natural thing that we can test and find. We can observe it a posteriori. We can observe it through our senses. Another quite alternative view that is also cognitivist and realist is Intuitionism, here supported by G.E. Moore. Now, Intuitionism, this says that actually morality is a fact, but we intuit it. It's a non-natural thing. Unlike with Mill's naturalism, where it thinks that it's just like anything else in the natural world, Intuitionism says morality is non-natural. It's its own special thing, but it can be found through our non-natural senses, through intuition. Oh, Mr. Nar, through intuition, which is that kind of sense you have that something is good or bad. So those are two cognitivist realist theories. Interestingly, and pretty much as a side note, there is a cognitivist anti-realist theory, and this is J.L. Mackie's error theory. So Mackie thinks that there are no moral facts, right? Because he's an anti-realist. Uh, and we're going to look at some kind of arguments, his arguments for this later, that there are no moral facts. But we speak like there are. So we speak in a cognitivist way. It just so happens that we are always wrong. So our statements are always wrong. They're truth apt, they're just 100% wrong because they treat it like there are moral facts, but there aren't any. Think of it a bit like, you sit in your philosopher's armchair and you realize there are no moral facts. That's this bit. But then you go into the world and you speak like there are moral facts. Now, the philosopher knows that you are wrong about that, but it doesn't mean that they're not claims about the world. They're just wrong claims. That's Mackey's error theory. Another view on this side is not up here. There's pretty much nothing up there. Instead, it is here, Emotivism. And this is supported by A.J. Ayer. Now, Emotivism says that there are no moral facts and we can't speak about them. Instead, morality or moral statements aren't really statements at all. They are simply expressions of emotion. We're not making a truth claim. Instead, all we're doing when we say, murder is bad, is we're really saying, boo to murder, which is why it's sometimes called the boo-hurrah theory. So, murder is bad, boo to murder is all we're really saying. It's non-cognitivist, we're not making a claim about the world. And when we say it's good to give to charity, all we're saying really is, hurrah, giving to charity. So they are expressions of emotion. So those are some metaethical theories, and that's how they fit into the cognitivist, non-cognitivist, realist, anti-realist debate.